wisdom, I guess, is, I mean, wisdom in one sense includes everything, knowing about the stars, knowing how to be a loving person, etc. But wisdom with respect to decision making would be the ability to make decisions that will be honoring to God and helpful to other people and yourself. So if you take love God and love your neighbor as the fundamental thing of what it means to be human, then good decision making would be decisions that align with that. And bad decisions would be ones that destroy life, dishonor God, etc., etc. And then the other question is whether you got all sorts of other decisions in between, which are really neither here nor there. You get a blue car or a red car. Well, you could, I suppose, have relative wisdom with respect to, which one's going to get dirtier or which one might attract more thieves, but it's a pretty small kind of a thing. And so do you really want to ascribe wisdom? I suppose it's a species of wisdom. It's just not as critical as choosing a spouse or choosing whether to follow Jesus or not or something along those lines.
So if you're talking to someone who's not a Christian or believer, according to your definition, it seems like it's bent towards a worldview, a philosophy of life. What would you say to them?
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, you can because God's created all people, so they have a relationship with Him whether they like it or not. There's just patterns of life and wisdom have a fair amount of universality to them. So even if you look in the book of Proverbs, you'll see plenty of common sense, as we call it, plenty of direct comparisons with like Egyptian wisdom literature, which Solomon was happy to make use of because it's just rules for getting along, and people, by God's grace, just tend to figure things out, and that's fine. So there's actually wisdom and decision making. That's a sort of place where you can find tons of common ground with anybody. Now again, it's a cultural element, right? What's wise in one culture might be foolish in another, right? If speak up for yourself will get you ahead in a company in America, that's wise to do so. If it would get you shot at some other place, well, then it's unwise. So context is pretty important. But yeah, even though these things ultimately derive from God and have to be seen by me in the context of God, there's still plenty of wisdom we can share about how not to be stupid. And therefore Christians can also benefit from all sorts of other people in the workplace or even all sorts of other things. I remember working in a psych hospital, and there was a Jewish psychologist there. He was just a very wise, discerning kind of guy, and I learned tons from him about relationships and how to communicate and all sorts of other stuff. And I don't even know how religious a Jew he was particularly, but wisdom is a fairly universal thing. I'm just ascribing that to God. Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask you this person's
go.
name?
Arthur Klein was his name. I don't know if he's still.
Was he a doctor? What did he do?
He's a psychologist, yeah, so working with adolescents.
Do you remember any specific thing he did? You saw that?
No, he just, as he spoke with the families and the adolescents, he had a very good way about him, a good way of approaching it, and discernment as to what was causing trouble. And the one thing that does stick out, a recognition of the difficulty of solving some of these problems. I don't know if it was he who said that, the family gets 14 years to screw the kid up and we have, 6 months to fix it. But I do remember it was him who was saying, yeah, we do some kind of apparently strange things by way of trying to treat these kids, making them earn privileges and being sort of restricted. But he said, the reality is nobody has a lot of success with these kids trying to get them unscrewed up. And so we do what we can. And there's just a very good attitude, very wise, that he wasn't overselling what they're doing, recognizing in humility. And James, of course,